And our correspondent Jonathan Sacerdoti reporting from the scene throughout the day and earlier with this.
Well, Nurit, as we heard earlier on, Boris Johnson made a statement saying that the British Transport Police were looking into this, and Theresa May was being kept abreast of all information and updates. But eventually it became clear that this was being treated by Scotland Yard as a terrorist incident. Then later on there was the news that there was a timer attached to the explosive device that was discovered in that train when it did detonate. But it seems that it didn't cause the explosion that was intended, and only the primary detonation took place.
We heard Boris Johnson urging calm, something we hear often from officials, whether it's in London, in the United Kingdom, or in France. Does that actually happen after an attack and after the year that the United Kingdom has had?
Well, if anything, this is becoming second nature to British people, which is perhaps something that those in Israel might identify with. These terror attacks are more and more frequent now across Europe and here even in London in recent months and years. And that means that people have got used to carrying on as usual as long as this hasn't inconvenienced them personally. Now, luckily, this particular attack caused no deaths, and it caused injuries which have been said to be non-life-threatening. People have been treated across 4 hospitals in London, but it's been said to have been injuries such as burns and things like that which haven't caused a threat to life. Nonetheless, this is very serious, and the idea that somebody could simply walk onto a London Underground train carrying a bucket containing an improvised explosive device is going to be quite alarming to many people. British people rely on public transport, and those in London in particular rely on the tube to get them to and from work every single day. This event taking place during the rush hour at around 8:20 a.m.
And this, Jonathan, when you say people are going to be maybe surprised at this, to give some context, we're talking about an extremely highly secured city, relatively speaking, some of the toughest surveillance laws and surveillance cameras really everywhere.
That is true, but there's very little that can be done to securitize London Underground to the level of, say, an airport, when you consider the number of people that use the Underground every single day compared to the number of people who use air travel and even busy airports like Heathrow and Gatwick here in the UK. So it's going to be very difficult for anybody to make the security tight enough within the London Underground to check every single package or bag that's being taken on or off a London Underground train. So what that leaves the authorities with is the ability perhaps to use the camera network and the security in place to figure out who brought this device onto the train and how, but maybe not to prevent people doing that in the future. Such security would simply make the city grind to a halt, and that's something that will be making people consider how safe it is to go about their daily lives in London.
Along with that security debate is obviously the debate we see time and again across Europe and really around the world about balancing civil liberties and security. It has been revived in London specifically already several times this year. Where is that standing today? Is there any sort of conclusion from the government or from your impression from the public on where they stand on that debate?
Well, sadly, I've reported from quite a few of these sorts of terror incidents across Europe and even here in London. And I can tell you that generally the mood seems to be shifting towards a resigned realization on the part of the public that, yes, maybe they need to compromise their freedoms in order to look after their safety somewhat. But Britain is still a country where people hold very dear the idea that they have their privacy to go about their everyday lives as they want to. That said, nobody wants to feel endangered, and most people are willing to make some compromises in order to make sure they're safe.
Our Jonathan Sacerdoti there at the scene of that explosion this morning in London. Thanks very much, Jonathan.